All right, folks, it's almost ready. I appreciate everyone's patience here. We're almost live.
No problem, John. Just gonna give me the go ahead.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I believe we are all set here. Just a note that Peter Karen he let me know he's going to be running a little bit late tonight. So he's
Okay, yeah.
a new member here
That's
who's not here right now.
that's fine. Some of those meetings that we have, it depends on what time he gets out of work. He gets here right for when it starts. So, but he's not a voting member, so it's not like we have to, wait for him to be present in order to start. So, if we have Michelle here, I'm just going to officially call the meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. Zachary Karen, Chairman of the Dighton Zoning Board of Appeals. It is 7:07 here on Tuesday, on November 17th. This meeting is being held remotely on Zoom. This is a special meeting for the Strawberry Fields. So, Michelle, if you don't mind, just reading the beginning of the notice on top of the agenda.
Due to COVID-19, the public hearing will be held remotely with no physical meeting location. Those seeking to provide public input should do so using the methods listed below. Video and audio of the meeting will be aired on local TV Channel 9 at a later date. A live recording of the meeting will be available on the Town of Dighton YouTube channel, which can be accessed using this link: www.youtube.com/channel/UC.
Sorry to interrupt you, Michelle. That's actually the old link that is currently not working for us. So folks can access us at youtube.com/Town of Dighton.
Okay. What he said. Okay. Those seeking to participate in the virtual Zoom public hearing may join the meeting at this link. Is this www.bit.ly /DightonZBA-11-17-2020. Attendees will be muted during the meeting and will be unmuted during public input for each case. Public input can be submitted in advance or during this hearing via phone at 508-669-6431, extension 119, or email at jgray@dighton-ma.gov. Please must include the subject property's address or development name, as well as your own address for the record.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. So after that notice, if you don't mind, if we could just take a brief moment of silence in lieu of a pledge of allegiance, just to put our thoughts towards anybody who is struggling through the pandemic right now. Okay, excellent. Thank you, everybody. So again, Dighton Zoning Board of Appeals, special meeting for Strawberry Fields. We're just going to get right into business today. We will be jumping ahead and going to the public input portion first. So I know we have a member of the public who wasn't able to make it to the meeting last week, but he wanted a chance to speak tonight. But before we do that, if we don't mind, is there anything amongst the applicant they want to start off with tonight?
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And again, Christopher Agostino, counsel for the applicant. I want to continue to thank the board for all their hard work in working through this permit that is extraordinarily detailed and identifies every last facet of the proposed development. There's also been a lot of work behind the scenes that Attorney Mitchell and I have done to make sure that the draft permit captures all of the discussions that we've had during the hearings. And what you should have before you tonight is a draft permit that has, I think, two potentially three substantive issues that we're hoping to resolve tonight. And then I know earlier today, I received correspondence from Mr. Gray regarding a few administrative changes to the permit as far as correcting dates and identifying additional documents that were submitted to the board and identifying some other sort of administrative matters that the permit references. So with that, I'm hoping tonight we might have an opportunity to wrap this up, but we'll see where the evening goes. And obviously it's at the discretion of the chair, but hopefully once we have a chance to review those substantive issues, we'll be in a position to put this to a vote this evening.
Excellent. Okay, so that being said, is there anyone amongst the board who has any questions or comments or something that's come up since last meeting you want to address?
Mr. Chairman, Greg Logan, not at this time.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, no, you're all set. Okay. And is there anybody else? Michelle, do you have anything?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Sure. All right, Marguerite, is there anything you'd like to address before we get going with the discussion?
No, I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And is Peter Williams on tonight?
Yes, he is. Peter, just have a, yep, all right, you're all set.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, great.
I'll just note Mr. Clunan from the Water District is here as well. Jeff, if you have any sort of input, I think perhaps now would probably be the time. Correct, Mr. Chairman?
Sure. Yes, that's fine.
All right. Sorry about that. I need to pull over. I'm listening to you guys in my car.
That's all right.
I don't want to crash. So, yeah, no, thank you for inviting me, Mr. Gray. Our input is, obviously everyone knows that we do have a moratorium. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand necessarily how this works with the 40B and how it would play out. I'm sure it would get very ugly in court. So all I'm here to say is we're out of water. We're going to be doing a well exploration. Hopefully the ball will be rolling tomorrow. I'll be making the phone calls to start that process. And that's what I have. It's going to, hopefully we find water there. If we don't, then we have to come up with a plan B, C and D, keep going down the alphabet. So that's where we're looking for water. Currently don't have enough. That's why we put the moratorium on, and that's that. That's all I have for now, unless you have any questions.
Does anyone on the board have any questions for him today?
Mr. Chairman, Greg Logan.
Yeah.
I have a couple, just follow up with this. So the moratorium is still going on, and so you're trying to find a new well. Is that what's going on, Jeff?
Yeah. So obviously we can't have a perpetual moratorium. It's just not, I don't even know if it's legal. So we put a moratorium on, we put a 2-year tag on it just to get us through kind of a design or a plan. Now we have a plan. It didn't take that long. Obviously we have to find water. So what we did was I made some phone calls, looked at some plots and some land. And so right now we are going to look for a well in the Brook Street area where Somerset is, where they have a well. We did offer Somerset a considerable amount of money to purchase their well, but they don't want to relinquish it. So that avenue stalled. We worked on that for about a year. So kind of said, screw it. We're going to look for our own. And so we are. And that process will start tomorrow. But it could take, and I had a very nice call with the DEP Friday. I mean, it could take us 5 years to have that well online, approved, built. The approval process is horrific. So we're hoping 5 years, but who knows? And that's if we do find water. We're optimistic, but then again, it has to be clean water because it could cost an extraordinary amount of water to get it to the plant that the plant couldn't handle anyway. So we're hoping the water's clean and usable there.
So, Mr. Clune, and that being said, just walk me through this a little bit. Does that mean that the building inspector can't issue any new permits until that well is put in?
According to our moratorium and what Jim has been doing and working well with us is, unless a lot has been approved previously, then we're not giving any water. So he's not approving. Obviously the lot size changes. You got to put wells in. So Jim has adjusted his way of doing business that way because we're not putting any more. We have 151 or so, 150 or so approved lots right now currently that were approved years and years ago. But from when the moratorium went in, it was in June. We put it in June. I can't remember the exact date. From that point on, we're not approving any new services unless your well goes dry. Stuff. There's certain provisions, but yeah, basically.
Jeff, this is Jonathan Gale.
Okay.
Could you tell us?
Oh, John, 1 second. Attorney Mitchell, so just out of curiosity, so I know we have to, by the Chapter 40B, when we have a 40B before us, as opposed to regular development, we have to have our services, suit the needs of the development as opposed to vice versa. How does that come into play here? Whereas, it looks like we have a service that we by right should be making fit and adapt to the town, but it seems like that's almost impossible. How does that affect any of this?
Existing moratoriums that are in place at the time that a 40B application is filed are something that a developer would need to comply with. But if they are added after the application is filed, then the 40B laws would say that they precede the moratorium and the town cannot rely on the moratorium not to provide water. That being said, I think we were aware that this was a possibility. And my understanding is Mr. Hashem has attempted to try to find different ways through a phasing plan and also through some other timeframes to decrease the amount of potential water that might be needed for a number of years from the town, with the hopes that the town will be able to obtain the water it needs and get whatever it ends up doing to obtain that water and put it online in place by the time that he really is looking to start some significant construction of this development.
Okay. So essentially speaking, this would not apply to them because they obviously put in way before this went into effect.
It doesn't apply to them legally. I think there's a practical element here that Mr. Hashem has recognized. So, I think that they've attempted to come up with ways to address the practical element. And that would be what I think will be the ongoing conversations as we get to the point of construction, which is a number of years out at the moment.
Okay. All right, John, go ahead. You had something?
Jeff, my question was, if you could just tell us briefly 2 questions. One is, how close are we up against it right now in terms of available usage per day versus actual usage? And second, look, if you go down the road and there's, for example, 151 lots that have been approved prior to, up to now, plus these 100 and some odd that are being discussed tonight, where do you feel we have to get to in terms of usage of gallons per day from where we're at now in order for what's on the books now to be built, or lots plus what's being proposed in our conversation tonight?
That's a good question. from seeing what our deficit in the summer months, which is what we're talking about, really, because in the winter, obviously you don't pump as much and it rains a little more and stuff like that. We don't have deep wells, so I don't mean to get off, but our wells are relatively shallow, and they don't perform like a real production well should. They're not giant production wells. It's just is what it is. But as far as how much water we would need, I think our firm, like our gallons per minute, our firm gallons per minute coming out of the wells and into the plant, out of the plant is about, taking in account with backwashes, I think we figured it at around 680 gallons per minute is what we can do. And this summer we found that we could not meet the demand of the town currently, and I think that we need around 1,200 to 1,500 gallons a minute to meet the demands. Is what it's kind of the numbers I'm looking at with the growth of the town. To support the town going forward, I think we need at least around 1,500 gallons a minute.
When you mentioned the 1,500 gallons, which is obviously a doubling of the amount plus, is that including projects like this and others that might be proposed, or is that not taken into account?
Yeah, no, that would take into account the project being proposed. Going forward, it's hard to put a number on that one because I don't know what else is coming forward, to be honest with you. But projecting the town out, I wish, if Jim was here, he'd have a number for me. But say the town doubled, then we need to not necessarily double, but 1,500 to 2,000 gallons a minute would probably be sufficient for a town of 12,000 people or so. Right now we're at 8,000. I have roughly 5,000 of you on our water system. So if you double our water system, then if you do the math, then we kind of have to not necessarily double it, but maybe 3/4 of that.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions for him at this point? Okay, is there anything, does the applicant have anything they want to address in regards to these comments if they want to? They can.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we have to belabor the point. I think, Jeff has made his concerns about future planning clear, and, this is a long-term planning issue for the town. I think Attorney Mitchell has articulated the status of the law relative to 40B applications where this moratorium was not in place when we applied, and this hearing has gone on for quite some time. And I recall earlier in the process at one of the public hearings, there was testimony that there is water available. It's in tight supply, but there is water available for this project. And the moratorium was then subsequently put on in June, I guess. So, we've heard extensive testimony on this. The applicant has met with the Water Commission several times to talk to them about potential mitigation measures to help, again, with the town's long-term planning, which needs to be done regardless. And I think that's a win for the town in now having the applicant as a partner in trying to assist the town in maybe getting a Mass Works grant. There's language in this permit that would actually allow the applicant to grant some of the landmass that we're preserving as open space to the Water Commission for them to build a well there potentially. And that's been discussed with the Water Commission. So the proposed conditions for the board's consideration adequately address these issues at length. So I think the applicant's made its case, and the evidence before the board cuts in favor of moving forward with the project.
All right, excellent. Is there any more questions before I move on, guys? All right.
Thank you.
So Jonathan, is there? Oh, sure, no problem. Is there, before we get to any anyone else? Is there anyone else amongst the town boards that have any questions that are here tonight, John, or no?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So at this time, we have a member of the public, the attorney for the abutters that is here tonight. Are you ready to go, sir?
Mr.
John,
Chair,
Is that
are
directed?
there?
I think we're getting
Yes, this is Attorney
feedback.
Murphy
Yep.
I'm sorry, if people are not speaking, could they mute their phone? I think we might be getting some feedback from somebody.
Yeah, I do hear some low rumble in the background.
It might be Jeff from the car. Oh, there it is. It was Jeff from the car.
Okay.
Jeff from the car. All right. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, attorney, you're all set?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Attorney Murphy, and apropos of the last topic, I'll just point to Mr. Cloonan's letter dated January 23rd, which is already a part of the record, fully 6 months before the moratorium, raising issues about the water supply needs for the development. I think that I'm at this place in the agenda so I could respond to the letters that have come in from Attorney Agostino. I'm sorry those had to get published to the board. Those were meant to be private conversations. When Attorney Agostino called me and offered to put up a fence or leave a 10-foot vegetated buffer, I took that to be in the nature of a settlement communication. In response, I countered with the possibility of doing a looped main through the Country Hill neighborhood. Unfortunately, while the residents there were considering that proposal, the letter came in a month ago accusing them of acting in bad faith. So the one thing I wanted to make clear for the board is that if you're a member of the public or an abutter, you have no obligation to attend a public hearing, write a letter, make a comment, hire a lawyer. You can simply wait till the permit gets recorded with the town clerk, and if you want to, you can file an appeal. It's a little bit counterproductive to suggest that folks would ask me to be here under COVID circumstances, dozen hearings over more than a year and a half in bad faith when they had no reason, for me to be here at all. I could simply stay home and file an appeal when it's all said and done. Now, if you'll remember, when this matter started, they came out in droves, so many that we had to hold the hearings in the cafeteria. Now, the fact that you haven't seen those people on these calls is in part because during these times, it's difficult. You sit through a meeting, last one 2.5 hours before there's an opportunity for the public to speak, and not everybody is prepared to do that. So I would ask the board not to draw any negative inference from the fact that the Country Hill residents have not attended since the in-person meetings, or any negative inference that instead they've had me attend on their behalf. I think we've created quite a good record, and I would implore the board to focus on the facts as they are in the record before you, and not what attorneys are writing back and forth to each other, and really is not anything useful for the board in terms of evaluating the merits of the project. Thank you.
Okay. Attorney Agostino, would you like to address his comments?
Sorry about that.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the correspondence speaks for itself. What prompted the correspondence initially was this board's venturing into a discussion about what can we do for the neighbors at Country Hill, or do we want a fence? And in that discussion, the problem and frustration from the applicant's perspective is that no concerns had been articulated, no specific, unique local concerns, or no specific concerns of any specific neighbor that identified a real tangible impact from this development were ever expressed during the course of the hearing that the applicant could address. And when I tried to explore further to see whether or not those concerns might be out there, I didn't receive any response, and I was disappointed by that. And I would just disagree with the characterization of the discussions about settlement discussions at all. And I think my letter made that clear. Anything about a looped water main or otherwise, the mention of a looped water main was brought up as something that I think Attorney Murphy at the time wasn't even certain that it was still something on the table. And he was going to go back and check his records on that. But I would disagree with the characterization of those discussions as settlement discussions. It was my desire, where there has been an attorney purporting to represent abutters that, again, have yet to be identified by name or address, which I think, goes against the spirit of these hearings, where if someone wants to speak, they have to identify or should identify precisely where they live and who they are. It was odd to us as the development team that deals with projects like this on a regular basis to have an attorney known for opposing 40B projects appear at every single hearing and not raise one single specific, tangible local concern or specific concern of a neighbor that would result in aggrievement. And I felt it was important to document that if, for whatever reason, someone decides to go forward with an appeal, to document that in order to defend, I think, this board for all their hard work. Because if this board does go ahead and approve the project and get appealed, I think that's a disappointment for this board, given all the hard work you've put into it to try to vet every potential concern out there. And where we as the applicant are actually charged with defending any permit that you might issue, I wanted to make it explicitly clear that you've done everything you can. So I felt it was important to get that on the record for this board's consideration and for the potential consideration of any future fact finder that might review what this board has done throughout the process. So those were my thoughts as far as why I wrote the letters. Again, I disagree with the characterization of the conversations, and I think the correspondence speaks for itself. If anyone at any time is at any specific concern that this development might impact them in a specific way, we've addressed every concern that's been raised within the confines of the law. And I commend this board for doing that. And we as the applicant have been patient and worked with you and your consultants in vetting all those issues. And, we look forward to having the board consider what we've put before them.
Okay, thank you. So guys, as you know, this is, not really anything that would impact our decision, but is there anything, any comments or questions you guys have for the attorneys right now regarding this matter? Have you all seen did you all see the correspondence that went back and forth?
Mr. Chairman, Greg Logan, yes, I have.
I have too.
Okay. Attorney Mitchell, I know, this is more of a discussion between the two attorneys, but is there any comments you have or anything that you think is relevant to the board for this?
No, I'll just simply say to the board, as I know you do with all of your deliberations, you need to take into account all of the input that you received during the public hearing. That includes written input and verbal input, and it comes from all sources, from the developer, from the developer's consulting team, from the town boards and commissions, and from abutters. So I just want to remind you that this, just because it's a 40B, that's no different.
All right. Is there anything else, guys, for the attorney? Okay. All right. Moving forward. So if the Attorney Agostino is regarding the loose ends for the permit, I know like you said, there's been some discussion back and forth between you and Attorney Mitchell, and I know Jonathan Gray. You've had some work that's been being done behind the scenes. Would you guys mind just giving us a update as to what things have changed or what has transpired since then?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, this is Chris Agostino again. I think with Jonathan's help, did we lose Jonathan?
No, I'm still here. Still here.
Here he is. Oh, you moved on the screen there. Okay.
I can't leave. I'm contractually obligated to be here.
Oh, I can't imagine you have any place else to be, Jonathan. Come on. I was hoping with your help, you might be able to do a screen share of the last draft that Marguerite had circulated.
Yes. Would you like the redlined version or the clean version?
The redlined version.
Sure. Give me a moment to bring that.
So, well, Jonathan is bringing that up. As the board knows, we've spent quite a bit of time over the last several hearings discussing every individual proposed condition. And I think that's a process that I would suggest is unique to this board, and it shows the level of detail and attention to detail that this board brings to bear in reviewing one of these projects. But in doing that over the last few hearings, we've reviewed redline versions of the permit drafts, and we've discussed language that the developer might be able to live with and that satisfies the board's concerns. And we've brought those drafts to the board's attention after Attorney Mitchell and I have tried to craft language to resolve or document what was discussed during the hearing. So at the last hearing, we resolved most all of the substantive issues, but the few remaining issues that Marguerite and I were tasked with redrafting for the board's consideration are found in a few limited sections. So Jonathan, if you would go to section 12 to start. I think that one is just a typo-oriented change.
Do you have a page number on that, Chris?
Yeah, sorry, page 10. So if you see in condition 12, the word appointed. So Mr. Chairman, we had discussed that Mass Housing now, as part of their procedure, appoints the lottery agent. The applicant doesn't get to select the lottery agent. So we've noted that change in the language of the permit. Now, obviously, the other thing that we had added at the prior hearing that you'll see in this section is that any correspondence to or from the applicant is going to be copied on the board, copied to the board so that the board is aware of all goings on. And I know this board makes a point to monitor that Mass Housing is doing their job as the subsidizing agency. So if we go down to section 19 and 20, if you see in section 19, we mentioned that there are going to be basements for the townhouse, or a basement for the townhouse units, and Marguerite just made that clarification in this section. If you go down to section, there were a few just drafting changes that were made in section 20, nothing substantive, except you'll see that Peter Williams had a change regarding outlet control structures and ensuring that there was sufficient diameter for all the orifices in the outlet control structures to avoid clogging. So that was a change that Peter Williams had proposed. And again, that's the level of engineering detail that this permit includes. If you would go down to section 21, Jonathan. Okay, so this is one of the substantive points that we had a bit of an extended exchange on at the last hearing, and we were trying to capture minimum setbacks. And we had done that for the single family houses where it's easy and traditional for single family houses to have setbacks. But then we had a subsequent discussion regarding the cottage style units. And because the cottage style units are a different type of housing altogether, we discussed setbacks from the rear property line. And Marguerite has captured that in this language here. But the one drafting question and clarification that we wanted to add to this, and to coincide with the discussion that we had at the last hearing, is that we agreed, or the plan shows, that no driveway will be less than 19 feet in length. And we wanted to make sure that wasn't confused with a 19-foot setback to the cottage style dwelling. So that last clause of this section, we were proposing to be set off as a separate sentence that just says that no driveway shall be shorter than 19 feet in length. And again, this is all what is reflected on the plan. So we're trying to make sure that the plan complies with the conditions that we've written, so that we don't create a problem for ourselves and for the board when we present this for final approval. So that was the last proposal. If anyone feels that that was inconsistent with the discussion, but I went back and checked the videotape on this, and I think Greg Logan made a comment, to make sure that the driveways were of sufficient length to adequately serve a vehicle, and the 19 feet was the number. So the proposal there is to mark that off at 19-foot driveways as a separate sentence.
Okay.
So if there's no comment or question on that one, Marguerite and I.
I don't.
Okay. Marguerite and I can make that change. In section 25, Jonathan, we had discussed at one of the last hearings, the fence at the top of the riprap slope adjacent to the townhouses, and we've just articulated that requirement in this condition. Should be consistent with the discussions we've had. Okay. Now, Jonathan, I'm sorry, but we actually have to go back up because I had my notes in reverse order. So if you would go back up to condition 15. It's on page 11. Okay. So we've had extensive discussion with the board about trying to make sure we vary the housing types of the single family homes so that we don't have all one style of home construction on every lot. And we've gone ahead and crafted this language which accomplishes that goal. But now that we've crafted the language, we've been so precise, and it's one of the risks at being overly detailed, is that you can create problems for yourselves. But we've created language that's so precise, it doesn't allow for very much flexibility if we're off by a home at half a rate of the projected homes that we're showing in this condition. For instance, there was a condition, the condition reads below, if more than 1/3 of the total houses for any phase are of one building design, then the subsequent phase cannot contain more than 20% of that design for the total number of houses in that subsequent phase. Now, that's fine as a concept, but that's a pretty rigid standard, and we want to avoid a situation where the building inspector grants a permit for a house, without calculating the numbers precisely, and we find ourselves potentially tripping this requirement in the permit, and someone suggests that we have to tear a house down. Or suppose there's an owner or a buyer that wants to purchase a certain housing style, and it's a second phase, and that's going to put us over the 20%. We want to avoid a situation where we have to run to the board for an approval, even if it's a minor approval, to get permission to build a house of a certain housing style. The same goes with the first sentence that talked about the rate of construction for styles of market rate homes versus affordable homes. And again, we're fine with endeavoring to maintain these rates of construction, but we wanted to have a brief discussion tonight with the board about adding some language that provides for the words to the effect that the applicant will endeavor to or use best efforts to maintain a rate of construction. And same thing for the sentence regarding the 33% in a phase. The applicant will endeavor to or substantially in compliance with. And again, conditions like this, we believe, only come up if something is getting out of hand, where we're building all one style. Then that's something where, yeah, we should return to the board and explain to them why we showed them all these styles and we're only building one of them. But if we're going along in construction and everyone agrees that the development looks great and we're adequately varying housing styles, we don't want to inadvertently set a trap for ourselves or something that someone with less than real concerns is trying to make a problem out of. So with that, does the board, would the board have some appetite for us including language to the effect that, we'll use best efforts or substantially in accordance with these rates, just to allow for some emergency outlet?
So I have just a question for Greg and I guess Peter, Karen, if he's there. So what do we typically do when things like this happen? Because I mean, I've only seen 40Bs that have already been well underway. Is this something that we've done before? Is this something that we haven't done? But what's your input on this?
Oh, Jack, I might be speaking out of place here, but I believe this happened to Bishop on the Pines already, with a situation that a potential homeowner wanted to build one of the house designs in a phase, and he had already met it, and he had to come back in front of us, and we've called it a non-substantial change. I think that's already happened. Is that what you're trying to avoid, Chris?
Yeah, the idea of having to write a letter to the board, where we have a potential buyer entering into a contract that wants a specific style, and say it would trip us up by one house in the entire development. Okay, that type of variance shouldn't trigger a legal issue or potential non-compliance with a permit. So because we've been so precise, I'm concerned that we're potentially creating problems where this board might not necessarily think there's a problem. And now we've had to get counsel involved. It costs money, delay. I took a quick look back, and I believe that there was some additional flexibility. I don't believe the language was this precise in prior permits. But again, we totally agree to the concept, and it's our intent to vary housing styles and be reasonable about it and consistent with the rates that we've discussed. But I'm looking for some fail safe so that we don't have to write that letter, or we don't have someone accusing us of having to tear down a house without a ZBA hearing. And when you have this level of precision in your conditions, you can unwittingly create a dilemma like that.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak? This is
Sure, Bishop, go ahead.
Yes, I totally agree with the concept of varying the designs, but what concerns me a little bit, and I don't think that's the board's intent, that if, we have reached our percentage limit on in certain model home, and a homeowner comes and requests, oh, I really want a ranch because I'm an empty nester and I want one level home, and we had reached our limit of building ranches, and yet they're spread out throughout the subdivision. I don't think the board's intent, and now correct me if I'm wrong, is to exclude something like that from happening. A house extra, a style of a home that's extra here or there. I would like to have the flexibility of having a free market determine that without going overboard to where everybody has the same style home. And I think the board sees the tasteful way we dress things up and vary things up, that if we build two more houses of one style than another, or reach the 33, excuse me, I'm gonna cough, reach a 33%, it is the 33% distributed over the whole subdivision is not really and done tastefully is not really a detriment to the neighborhood. I'm sorry.
That's right.
So what we're trying to do is leave a little bit of a leeway to free market to play into this, yet done still within reason. That's the purpose.
And so you're not going to try to build 4 one style houses. This is what I'm getting at, Bishop. So you met your 33%.
Exactly.
And you've seen your developments, and they look really good that way. You strategically lay them out throughout your development.
I have every incentive to make sure that the place looks nice. It's not a cookie cutter, and all you have to do is drive by 2 of our subdivisions, and you'll see even when we have people who are dying to have 2 houses of similar styles right next to each other, we try to change. We put like a different siding on it, or stone front, or different style dormers, just to kind of have it tastefully done. And then we make sure that we don't repeat it 3-4 houses down that repertoire.
Yeah, because Zach, for your question when you were asking me earlier is yes, this has happened to us before, and the developer petition had to come out in front of us.
Yes.
So, Greg, I mean, that being said, is it something that you feel like is reasonable for us to nip this in the bud now, or do you feel like we should not veer from that? How do you feel?
Well, every case is a little different on this particular one. Like I say,
right.
The reason I believe this language was put in there is so exactly what Bishop was stating, that you walk in and it don't look like a house after house after house, all the same look. That's why we were doing it, and I do understand when if a buyer is coming in front of them to purchase one type of home, and I'm sorry I can't sell you that house right now because of, so I start another phase. My biggest concern is on this particular language. I just want to go over this with Marguerite before I say much more. But I'm concerned with the language is that if we allow him to go ahead and let's say, I forgot the name of the house, they're going to build house A and they want to put 2 more house A's next to house A. I know Bishop stated that he's going to try to change the concepts of the front of the house, whether it's an A dormer, a shed style dormer, some different farmer's porch, maybe not a porch. I'm okay with that particular thing there, but I believe that's the language that you're trying to change, Chris, is just in case he had a potential buyer in that phase to go forward.
Yeah, and again, I think, and Bishop, correct me if I'm mistaken, the first stop on this issue is going to be the building inspector. And if you're cruising along, pulling permits for, and again, to be clear, this only concerns the single family area. If
Right.
you're cruising along pulling building permits and the building inspector says, hey, wait a second, you just pulled 4 of type A. If he then goes to the permit and does the calculation and says, this says it's 3 market rate for every, 1 affordable with this style. And this would be 4 market rate to 1. And it's the only instance where that happened. We want the building inspector to have flexibility to say, you know what, this is close enough. The spirit of the condition has been met. We don't have to have the boards spend their time on a hearing. We don't have to have the applicant get held up over this. There's language here that allows me to do my job without having to go call the board every 5 seconds. So I think that's the goal of what we're looking for. Bishop, does that capture it?
Yes, it does. All we're saying is, keep those parameters, but leave it, within reason or within, what's reasonable. Give us a little bit of wiggle room. That's all.
Okay. So, I mean, to me, it seems reasonable to me. Greg, how do you feel?
I'd like to hear Margarita on one thing. The reason why I'm saying is that the only thing that we're trying to change on this document is the wording in blue. Am I correct on what I'm reading on Article 15?
So since the last hearing, and again, we've been trying to craft this permit to capture the discussions that we've had at the prior hearing. The discussion we had at the prior hearing was we asked for some flexibility. And in reading it again, we said, hey, wait a second, there's some pretty strict language that we had included 5 hearings ago. So the concept of flexibility needed to be applied to, or we're asking it to be applied to the rest of this. So, this is all still malleable. This is all still up for the board's discussion. And, we in reviewing this permit, wanted to bring this to the board's attention and see if we could get an agreement on some language here.
All right, so this is what I'm a little leery of trying to relieve a little bit, but I understand what I'm trying to come up with as a plan. I don't need you guys to go to us every time you want to do something similar to what you're talking about here. But however, who's to say that, all right, we've got 4 buyers, they all want the same style house. Now Jimmy's going out and trying to hand out almost 40%. So we have to be careful when we only have it as a minimal amount. And that's where I wanted to ask Marguerite, is there any way we can give them a little flexibility? But yeah, I don't want to see more. All of a sudden 60% of them are all the same. You understand what I'm saying? Or 55% of them. I understand we're at 33.
So there's a couple of different things that I see here. The language that's being proposed to be changed really only talks about the number of affordable homes that would be constructed with regards to a particular style of market rate homes. The part about the 33% and then in phase 1 and phase 2 doesn't have any qualifying language in it, but that's what I'm hearing Attorney Agostino talk about as well tonight. Keep in mind that you're talking about 52 single family homes, only 13 of which are affordable. So, I think that what's been done typically for this board is that if there's ever any change where a developer needs to construct, wants to construct the affordable home in a different style than what 3 of the market rate homes are, they've come to you and explained that. And I know it does take time, but I think this board meets fairly regularly, so it's not usually a significant amount of time. And then you have that discussion in the moment where you can understand, and you will even say, is there a chance this might be needed down the road? I think then you are not talking about hypotheticals, you're talking about actual need and changes there, because it's, and I, you'll talk to Bishop will probably present, this is what I plan to do if I've got all of these homes that I'm building, but I'm not going to build an affordable home this way. This is the affordable home I'm building instead. There isn't anything in this language that actually prohibits someone from putting the same style house next to each other. It doesn't prohibit somebody from putting 3 of the same style houses next to each other. And because you were giving, this language was crafted to provide that flexibility where there may be a particular lot that really suits itself to a particular style house or series of lots like that. And that's why there was percentages put in place rather than, this sort of specific language about you can't have the same style home next to each other. The qualifying language here really is related to the number of the style of the affordable home based on the styles of the market rate homes. And you're talking about 13 of them. So, I think what the board has tried to do in the past, and as I understand Fisher's, committed to, is that he's not looking to build the nicest homes in the ones that are the largest for the market rate, and then the smallest homes for the affordable homes. But the board's ensuring that by saying you're doing it in a proportionate way. Every time you have 3 of one style market rate home, you're building 1 affordable home. And if that isn't able to happen, then they come back to you through the process that the 40B regulations provides for, to ask for some relief and explain to you why. I appreciate that they want the building inspector to have some flexibility, but we know how busy the building inspector can get. And he might think in one case it's fine, but he might not realize that he's now done this 2 other times. And now the board, what seemed reasonable is now, I'm not sure what you mean by reasonable. Is reasonable 1 time or is reasonable 3 times? And that's where it's hard to craft this language, because your definition of reasonable may be different than the building inspectors, which may be different than Mr. Hasham's. And I think those are all the things you'll need to think about as board members as you make a decision about what language you want to put in here.
So you're not advising no, leave it alone. You just want us to make sure that we have a very clear understanding as to what exactly the language is for it?
Well, I'm saying that if you do leave it alone, the language had read for every 3 market rate single family homes of a particular building style, 1 affordable home will be constructed using that style. And the proposed language is, except for reasonable cause, the rate of construction for the single family home shall provide that for every 3. So it has this qualifying language at the beginning. And putting that in means that it's subject to interpretation of whoever's reviewing it at the time. The only way to not have that happen is to be clear about what you're willing to do. If you're willing to give some flexibility here and you're willing to say, however, you can add a sentence that says, however, this does not apply if there may be 1 exception, with 1 exception or something. You could do something like that, because you could say, we understand there may need to be some flexibility, but then you get 1. Otherwise, you come back before us because we want to talk to you about it. We want to understand what's going on.
Mr. Chairman?
Is that Fisher?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I have 2 points to make here, please. Number 1, I totally get what Marguerite is getting at, and I think it's very reasonable. And we're not asking a free rein here. We're saying leave a little bit of the wiggle room to the building inspector, and let me tell you the significance of the wiggle room. 2 points. Oftentimes we project, we hit a lull in the market rate, and rather than keep sending people home, we keep market rate sales. Rather than sending people home, we build ahead. Like in Stony, we were finished with. I'm so sorry. We finished all the affordables probably like 8 or 9 months before we finished sales of the market rate. If we were off by 1, and we project our sales accordingly, and we always like Marguerite said, we don't build the smallest, we don't build the largest. If we build 3 of the largest, we build 1 largest, we build 3 smallest, and so on and so forth. We don't want to be off. As a matter of fact, right now, 33% of 52 is 17.2. So how are you going to get to 17.2 houses? So all I'm saying is, leave me a little bit of wiggle room, and to say that, oh, it's no big deal, just come back to us and tell us. And then, and you have been very responsive and very cooperative whenever I come. Reasonable is what I'm saying. Whenever I come before you, but that process takes a month, and a customer is not going to wait for a month before I tell them, you know what, I don't know if the board will approve it or not.
Yeah.
You know, I need to give them an answer. And if I tell them, wait, it's going to take me 4 to 6 weeks to get an answer, they're going to walk. So, and I don't think either one of us want that. So, but by the same token, I should not use that excuse and go build, way off those percentages. So all I'm saying is just give me, like Marguerite said, give me like one off here or there.
So if I could propose something, the comparable standard under the 40B regs is that for every 3 market rate units, or it states that the applicant shall build substantially at the following rate, or exactly what the reg says escapes me at the moment, but it's substantially in accordance with 3 market rate for every 1 affordable. Okay, so they use the word substantially. Can we apply that same standard to all of the rates that are in this section? So substantially in accordance with the following, substantially in accordance, and that at least adds the word that the building inspector can say, look, they're substantially in accordance with this. We don't need to bother the ZBA, and we're done with it. If the building inspector looks at it and says, hey, wait a second, you're off. And again, the building inspector does have to do this. And it's within the building inspector's purview. He's not going to kick. If the building inspector had to kick every condition in this permit to the board for review every time, then nothing would ever get done. So I'd propose that we include that substantial word, which is the one that's in 40B parlance already, as far as the rate of construction for affordable units to market rate units. And if we just add that standard to all this language, that would solve our concern.
Okay, yeah. So Attorney Augustino, I think that's as Bishop was using the term wiggle room, and I don't want to put words in Attorney Mitchell's mouth, but I think basically she's saying we have to define, quote unquote, what is wiggle room and how we're going to define that. So members of the board, how do you what do you guys think? I mean, Attorney Mitchell, I guess you too. How do you feel in terms of Attorney Augustino's suggestions to the wording?
Wiggle room is not a legal term?
No, it's not. Believe it or not.
You're right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't like the wording, except for reasonable cause. We need to come up with we're talking about reasonable cause. I'm willing to give him one. We're talking 17.2 houses, as he said. I'm willing to give him 1 before he'd have to come back in front of the board.
Okay.
Does the word substantially capture that?
Except for reasonable cause.
So I'm saying take out reasonable cause, and Marguerite and I can insert an introductory sentence to this that says the applicant shall substantially comply with the rates of construction for single-family home styles provided for in this paragraph. And then it says for every 3 market rate, you have 1 affordable of the same style. And then that would also encompass the issue below regarding the 33% in any one phase. So that covers it. And then if the building inspector says, hey, wait a second, you're required to substantially comply with this. You've already asked me for an exception once. Now you're asking me again. I should probably give Greg a call. So rather than 1, you just, and it conforms to, again, the language that 40B uses elsewhere regarding rates of construction. So we delete that except for reasonable cause and just say, the applicant shall substantially comply with the following rates of construction. Would that do it?
Yeah, and all the wording below, yeah.
And all the wording below. And then the substantially caveat solves the problem.
Attorney Mitchell, how do you feel? Yeah, that sounds fine with me.
I mean,
I would like to get Marguerite on this one.
yeah, again, I don't disagree that that's a little bit more specific than reasonable cause, but I'm not sure, again, it's subject to interpretation. If you're hard and fast, Greg, on saying you're willing to give one, but not more than one, then I think that you'd need to be clear about that. And say, with one exception, with regards to the following rates of construction, or with one exception, for each of the following rates of construction, the following shall apply. Or you say what Chris said, and that may mean a little bit more than one. And if you're comfortable with it potentially being more than one, then I think Chris's language gets you closer to compliance with the specific terms than the reasonable cause did.
I'm not sure what one exception means. Exception on what? One like the one.
If you're requesting a building permit that would trigger non-compliance, that would be one exception. If you request another building permit that triggers non-compliance, you've used up your exception.
Then you come back to see us.
Then you'd have to come back and explain why you've asked for two exceptions. So
Bishop, I believe Bishop on it was either the Pines or Stone, whatever the other one that you had done. You came in front of us once for a similar situation on this, out of all them houses.
What I came to you for was not, I came to you to add another plan and subtract another plan. And which again, it brings in another, this is why I think substantial is more, appropriate, because what happens if one style that we propose doesn't sell, and all of a sudden in a different subdivision, this new style is really popular. Okay, I would come before you, and now I might be halfway through the subdivision, and then you may approve it. Now, how do you figure that out in those percentages? So I think substantial compliance. I mean. And
I don't think this language would prohibit what you just described, Fisher. I think this language only prohibits you from overbuilding one style. Just the way it's worded. It's about phasing. So, the 33% is really for the first phase. And I'm not sure how many you're proposing to construct in the first phase. But is it all 52 or is it some of the 52?
It's all the single, no, some of the 52. The first phase, I think, is like 7-house single family.
So if more than a third of those are one particular style, then all it's saying is that in the next phase, you can't have more than 20% be that style. And if you wanted it to be one more beyond that, you would have, or more than that, depending on what language we settle on tonight, you would have some flexibility. And if you wanted it to be 2 more beyond that, or possibly the building inspector, if we have a little bit more vaguer language, the building inspector may say 2 is fine, then you wouldn't need to come back before the board, but at some point in time you would. That's what this language says. This language has 2 different pieces to it. One says that if you build 3 of the same style home as a market rate, you have to have one of the affordable units be that way. And it says if in the first phase you have 33% of one particular style, then the next phase can't have more than 20% of that.
But what is wrong with building 33% of one style in the first phase and 33% in the same style in the second phase? I'm not talking about the affordable in general. What is wrong with 33% of one style in the whole subdivision, so long as it's done tastefully and spread out?
So again, this was language that was proposed by you. I don't think the board ever had. The board said to you, we want to make sure that you spread it out, but I think these numbers were inserted.
Yeah.
We
included those numbers in response to the specific concern addressed by the board. And now in reading it, we realize that we need some, and again, we can comply with this so that when a phase is built, we're going to be varying from phase to some degree. But if somebody wants one more house in that second phase that tips them over the 20%, yes, we drafted that. And I think if the suggestion is that this was our condition, then all the more reason to allow us some flexibility in there to have some discussion with the building inspector that we're in substantial compliance. I hope we can figure out, let's just, if we could find a solution here. I'm really proposing the substantial compliance as the solution, as the caveat to this entire paragraph. And that will solve our concern, and I believe it solves the board's concern, again, for both the market rate to affordable home variance and the 33% and 20% variance. And if we're out of compliance and somebody calls us on it, then we come before the board. But if the place is looking great and nobody has any problems, we don't have any problems, we move on.
Okay. So
Mr.
that
Chairman?
being, yeah, oh, yep, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, can we put it to a straw poll or just to try to wrap this up?
No, yeah, I mean, Attorney Mitchell, is there any kind of more discussion that you think you need to have with us on this, or do you feel like this is something that we can decide upon tonight?
Oh, I think that this really comes down to what exactly is this board comfortable providing in its wording for some wiggle room. I get the sense the board wants to give something. And I think it just is a matter of what do you want it to be? Do you want it to be a little more specific about what that something is, or do you want it to be a little bit vaguer? And that's really, if you're comfortable with substantial compliance, it's a little vaguer. That's what it is. It'll be determined by the building inspector. It may be more than one. I don't want you to think it'll be just the one situation in both of those, one for each of those types of situations. But if you want it to be really, you just want to give them one and then you really want to talk to them, then be a little clearer. It's really your call about what you're looking for as a board in terms of follow up on this. I do agree that the percentages were the developers that was inputted, but I know the board wasn't wanting this condition. They wanted something in this condition. They wanted some type of specificity in this condition.
Okay. I'm personally fine with it being more than one. Greg, how do you feel? And Michelle too.
I like the one, and then come and see us.
Okay, and Michelle, how do you feel?
I'm kind of like torn on this. I mean, I know he doesn't do cookie cutter developments. I've driven through them before, and I've driven through other developers in this town who do that. And
yeah,
he does it's not even comparable.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure if I'm stuck on the one though, honestly. Where would this wording change be? If more than 1/3 of the total houses for any phase are of the one building the design, the subsequent phase, could we change should not contain more than 20% of that design?
No, the easy fix, Ms. Lima, would be to just add a sentence at the start for this paragraph that qualifies the entire paragraph, saying the applicant shall substantially comply with all of the rates of construction for housing styles in this paragraph.
I'm really not against that, quite honestly. In knowing his workmanship, by driving through it, I mean, I have only in Dayton, honestly, I haven't gone to the other towns, but it's just up the street from my house. It's totally different. I mean, I wish whoever developed my house had a vision like that, quite honestly.
So, Greg, is there a reason why you're set on the one?
I think just putting substantial in there still leaves room for leaving it up to Jim Aguirre, the building inspector, to allow more than one or two, and then all of a sudden it's a little run away from us before we see it.
So I do understand that, but I mean, knowing Jim's detail in his work ethic, are you concerned that could still happen?
No, but if it's in the vocabulary, Jimmy's a stickler about it. He says, well, the board gave you one, so you're using it now. And now you know if you're going to be looking for in the future, you might have to make a time to come out and see the zoning board of appeals.
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is that's why I was okay with it being more than one.
But being substantial, Zach, means he can do more than one.
Right. The idea is if it becomes a problem, the condition addresses it. I just don't see this becoming a problem, but if it did become a problem, Bishop would be back before the zoning board. I'm almost getting the impression that Mr. Logan is going to miss us when this hearing's over and he wants every opportunity to have us back before the board. So we can say hello.
That is not the case. That is not the case.
But again, this protects against the concern, and it's a reasonable solution. So I'd hope we can. And again, the other thing, Attorney Mitchell added a condition in this permit that any town official can bring noncompliance to the board's attention. So if somebody is taken around through the development on a Sunday and says, hey, wait a second, there's lack of substantial compliance here, then we have to come before the board. So the concern is addressed, the what ifs are addressed, and the applicant has flexibility, and the board, now doesn't have to have a hearing on, one house once a year or twice, once every few years that might come up as a problem, as long as the place is looking great and the concern is satisfied. So can we get approval on that language for the board's consideration?
I mean, it does have my approval, but I mean, like I said, there's two other voting members who have a say too. Just a quick sidebar. I know we did have some edits that John Gray still had to make and for us to look at. Is this something that, Greg, did you want time to, think about more language that you feel more confident in, or do you think you're pretty set on how you feel?
Well, the word substantial, all right, versus reasonable cause does help me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Well, reason why I'm saying that what's getting me is, okay, so we're going to do for substantial compliance. There's the wording you want to use in there, Chris?
Yes, it's a sentence at the beginning of this section 15 that says the applicant shall substantially comply with all rates of construction for single-family home styles set forth in this section, period. And then that sentence acts as a caveat or a fail-safe or a safety valve for the rest of it. So then when the building inspector reads through, it says if more, all the rest of the language is going to stay exactly the same. If more than 1/3 of the total housing in a phase or of one design, then the next phase cannot be more than 20. That all stays the same, but the building inspector can now look at what the next permit request is and says, yeah, that's substantially in compliance with 33% to 20%. You're good, no problem. You're substantial compliance.
All right. I'm not opposed to the substantial compliance.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Right.
that's fine with me. So that being said, is there anything else that we need to discuss, guys?
So, Mr.
I just want to confirm on number 15, everything else is staying the same.
Yes,
Just what's
all the
highlighted
rates-
in the blue is what we're changing. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to change, we're going to delete what's highlighted in the blue and create a sentence. And that sentence is going to read what I just said about shall substantially comply with the rates of construction for single-family home styles set forth in this section. And then the rates are going to be the same. We're not changing the rates. And that's the proposed revision. So, okay. So is that matter, is everybody comfortable on that?
Yeah, I am. Yep.
Okay. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we have actually resolved all of the applicant's substantive concerns regarding the proposed conditions of approval. So what we have in front of us here are what the applicant would propose to the board for proposed conditions of approval with the changes we've discussed tonight. And the only remaining changes that we have are the administrative comments that Jonathan had circulated to us this afternoon. And I think we could dispense with those in 10 minutes, just so the board could see what else was raised. And if we dispense with those, it would be my hope or my suggestion that since we have the proposed conditions of approval, that the board consider those proposed conditions of approval in a vote, and with, you know, the changes that were discussed this evening, and put this to a vote this evening. And then, you know, Attorney Mitchell and I would pull together all the changes in a document that would be left at Town Hall for you to review individually and sign at your convenience. And on we go. So with that, Jonathan, do you want to bring up those administrative comments, and then we can have a discussion about what to do next potentially?
Or just give me a second and pull it up.
So first of all, thank you, Jonathan, for proofing our work here and making sure that all of the relevant dates were accurate and all of the relevant submissions are noted in the draft proposed conditions of approval. So, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman, have you seen?
Would you like me to, Chris, would you like me to just sort of go through this document to sort of point out the changes?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to summarize, yeah, the types of changes. I took a look at it, Jonathan, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't believe there was anything substantive in here.
No, it's not necessarily. I mean, there was some important things that I think were corrected, that like incorrect dates, that sort of thing, and just adding. Basically, it was just correcting, making sure that the dates are all correct. That, you know, it said in some places like a specific person submitted a comment letter on this date, but in actuality, that person may have sent in 4 different comment letters. So, you know, explicitly adding the dates of all those submissions was a substantial part of this document, and just making sure all the documents are correct. There was a few minor changes other than that, one of which was like right here, section 4, item 4, it incorrectly stated Paul Cusson twice instead. So I just went back and found it was actually Greg Watson. So it was really just really pretty much administrative things. One of the things was it mentioned in architectural style, the Highland. And so, you know, we got a lot more architectural styles than just one. So I included those as well as shown here. So it's really just as many of the actual things that were submitted, I tried to delineate as much as possible and go back into our records to make sure everything was to a T.
Perfect. And just flipping through it, you know, I don't see anything in terms of conditions or
yeah, no, I don't think there was really anything in here
findings
that was considered a condition. It's really just record keeping.
Okay.
All right, board. So, how do we feel? So, first, we not saying right the second, but we would need to close the public input before we do take this vote. But before we do that, is this something that we feel prepared to do? I guess what I mean is, do we feel any need to hold off voting before and see the edits that the two attorneys have to make, or do you guys want to vote on this tonight?
Zach, Greg Logan.
Yep.
Usually we have the all the documents all 100%, not just add-ons and fill-ins like we've had right here. I'd like to see the all the conditions changed, all the waivers changed, everything that we're looking for changed on the paperwork before I go ahead and make a vote on it. I don't know how you feel, but that's usually the way we've been doing them.
Okay. And Michelle, how do you feel?
I'd rather actually see everything, just the final print of it as well. I know this is my first one, but just so whatever we're voting on is concrete, and there could be no more, so it's just all in writing and concrete, and it's exactly what we've discussed over this entire time period.
Okay. That is how I was leaning towards too. Obviously, for that meeting, it would be very, very brief. So that being said, obviously next week is Thanksgiving. Can we do this the week after? Attorney Mitchell, how long would you feel like you would need? Obviously being the holiday, the last thing we want to do is have people be working over the holiday weekend. But realistically, what kind of time frame are you looking at?
So I think it depends on how quickly Chris can get this back to me. When do you think you can turn around? Can you get me a revision tomorrow?
I could do this in 15 minutes if we wanted to take a coffee break this evening. Mr. Chairman, I didn't mean to be flip, but it's really just section 15 and section 21, and then the administrative changes. So, I don't see a big drafting undertaking here. I had hoped that where we're really only changing those two sentences, we might be able to take care of this evening, but I understand the board wants to proceed consistent with their past exercises on this. I, understand you're hopefully at least planning to close public input at this point and then can deliberate on this at the next hearing. But it's really just those two changes that we discussed, so I can do them.
It's also going to be the changes that Jonathan has. There's 2.5 pages of this, so.
That's, yep.
That'll take a little bit more time. I don't know that it'll be the 15 minutes tonight, but I don't think it'll be much longer. But if you can turn it around to me tomorrow, Chris, then maybe we could set this up for like Tuesday night of that week of November 30th. So what's that, December 1st? I already have a meeting on the Thursday and the Wednesday, but.
I can't do December 1st, Marguerite.
Okay.
Could we do next Tuesday?
No, I'm on vacation next week, unfortunately, so no.
Could we set a meeting for Friday?
I was just say what about Friday?
No, I just have other commitments that I'm scheduled, and I'm not able to change them right now. If you can turn this around for today and tomorrow, I don't mind, as soon as my commitments are over, trying to schedule it immediately. So, but I'm not able to work on this past Thursday night.
What is,
you also need 24 hours. You're going to need time to post for this too. So keep that in mind. And isn't town hall closed on Fridays?
yes.
Okay.
So what's the earliest hearing we would be able to get this signed up?
So You're not available, Greg, on Tuesday, you said, right?
How long would the meeting be? I do have something going on. That's why I was questioning it.
I mean, I don't see this lasting more
Can't
than,
imagine very long.
yeah.
Because it's my anniversary, so.
Oh, then it's not a good night.
Yeah.
We did that to poor Jonathan once, and we're not doing
I
this
know,
again.
I remember that. I do remember that, yes.
Was
Um,
Well,
Was
again,
Monday
it's
out?
only. I,
Yeah, if we could look at Monday, the 30th, if you can get everything back, Chris, to me, and I'll look at it on Thursday, and then the board will have the Thanksgiving holiday break to look it over.
okay.
That work, Greg?
Yes,
So that would, well, what date is that? That would be the
30th?
Monday the 30th.
that's fine with me. We can do it. I mean, I do work, but I'm out by 4:30. I know there are people who work later, but I'm fine having it as early as possible too. So I don't know what everyone's work schedule is like during the day and what they can get home is, but I'm fine. I'm fine doing it earlier too.
I'm only available, I get home at 5:30.
Yeah, I think it would need to be at 7 on that night for me.
Okay, 7.
Yeah, I'm working in Yarmouth, so it's a ride back. So is that what we're
So
going, 30th?
I would just need a motion to first continue the public hearing to that date before we just set it. So I gotta have the motion and everything.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I would just say, potentially you might want to consider closing the public hearing tonight, just because if for some reason we were to receive public input, between now and then, that would have to add an additional item to the decision itself.
Right. So I know I did think that, but I guess I just in terms of a point of order. I mean, technically, I guess what they're submitting is edits. Does that mean they can still submit that even though the public hearing is over?
Yeah,
not public hearing, sorry, public input.
Yeah, that's not public input. That is just a revision to the draft decision.
Okay, I wasn't sure, what exactly constituted, submitting new documents. That's all. So that being said, before we do that, I would need to enter a motion that we do that.
A motion for the meeting or the motion for the public hearing?
We would first close the public input. The public hearing isn't over until a vote is made, but the public input allows us to deliberate, receive anything just in terms of edits from them without having members of the public or town boards or anyone come forth and I mean, they can attend the meeting, but, at this point, we wouldn't be able to get in any correspondence from them, any kind of, comments or anything.
So, Mr. Chairman, just so I can clarify for the minutes, you're looking for someone to make a motion to close the public hearing or close the public input. And then
correct.
And then a separate motion to continue to a date.
Continue the
close
public
the public
hearing.
input and then continue the public hearing. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, this is Michelle Lima. I will make a motion to close the public input tonight, Tuesday, November 17th, in regards to the Strawberry Fields.
Chairman Greg Logan. I'll second that one.
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
discussion?
this is Mr. Gale. Before you do that and make that motion to take a vote on it, with voting members, is there anyone in the public who wants to speak tonight?
We already did that earlier.
I thought it was just for that one person.
There was nobody else on, I don't believe.
Okay.
Did you have a comment to make, Jonathan?
Yeah, let me just double check my email just in case.
Well, Jonathan is checking his email. My only comment, very simple, honestly, is I would just like to ask Fisher if he would. I know at the last meeting he increased by $5,000 the amount for the playground. I'd like to ask him if he's willing to consider another $5,000 because $20,000 total is not a significant amount of money towards some sort of a playground in town, but it does go a long way towards the money that we need for something like this. And if you look at it per unit, it's still, not too much over $100 per unit for all of these units that are going to be there. So he may not want to comment on that and may not want to do it, but considering the expense that's involved in doing that, and we are going to be going forward with some sort of a major playground project in town within the next 6 to 10 months or a year at the most, I would ask him to consider that before this is closed.
Mr. Chairman, if
Sure, Bishop.
if you only knew how many $200, $300 per unit there is,
Bishop, I totally get that. I really, really do. You know that.
only knew how many of them there are. Just going from 6 foot to 8 foot fence adds like $50,000 to the cost.
Right.
And $50,000 here, $50,000 there. You're talking about real money.
I understand that, Fisher.
I really cannot. And I with all due respect, let me tell you one thing.
Yes.
If I see I am getting anywhere near 20%, anywhere near even 18%, I will most definitely make a donation, and you can hold me to that, my word, based on this.
I appreciate that, and Bishop, I do know what from the other things that I've been involved in. I see what your percentages are that you have to report and so forth. So I'm fully aware that they're lower. I was just kind of throwing it out there, hoping it would stick.
All right. So, Michelle, you made the motion. I would just need a second to, this again, reminder, guys, to close the public input.
I believe Greg did, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All righty. All right. So that being said, we just need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I think you have to take that as a poll vote, just so it's clear.
Oh, okay. So, I wish you guys to state your name, guys.
Chairman Greg Logan, aye.
Shalima, aye.
Okay.
And that was an aye from you as well, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yep.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. So next, I would like to do I hear a motion to continue the public hearing to that was on November 30th to 7 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, again, this is Michelle Lima. I make a motion to move the next public hearing meeting for Strawberry Fields for Monday, November 30th, 7 p.m. Zoom meeting, correct? Yes.
Yes. Is there a second?
Chairman Greg Logan, I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Michelle Lima.
Aye.
I say, guys, just again, just for the record, the names, please.
Michelle Lima, aye.
Greg Logan, aye.
Zachary Karen, aye. Okay, so we're all set, guys, for that. So the members of Strawberry Field, you guys are all set for this evening. There's nothing else that we will be discussing, obviously, with this case tonight. So you guys are all set. Board members, if you guys want to hang on a second just to make sure we have no loose ends to tie up on our end for any other business.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Night.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Thanks, Peter.
Night.
Good night, guys. I don't think you need me either, right?
No, we don't. Thank you.
Nope, we are all set, Margaret. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you, guys. You too, everybody.
Bye.
All right, board members. So, Jonathan, what you got for us? Anything good?
Yeah, so Jonathan Gale gave me a call this week and had some updates. Jonathan, do you want to take it away?
Sure, I'll make this about 2 minutes, guys, at the most, and this does not require voting. I want to run it through everybody and just make sure everybody's okay with this. I've had conversation with Veronica Truhl. Veronica Truhl is the monitoring agent for the 40B projects in this area. She works for South Shore Housing Collaborative, but she has been the monitoring agent for all of the developments that are in town right now, including Stony Ridge, including the Pines, including the others. I'm having a brain freeze. When we just finished working on a week, the last meeting.
Dynamite.
Thank you. And may potentially be for the future as well. What we talked about was in our conversation that came up over other things, not directly related to the town, but other work that I do, was potentially, she said she's heard inquiries from people in town in general who wanted to know more about the 40B concept. And what we talked about was her working with myself, perhaps with Jonathan, perhaps as the secretary for the ZBA, and putting together perhaps a 2-hour seminar, if you will, by Zoom with herself and someone from CHAPA. And the first seminar would be focused with the town, all the different committees in the town, especially going forward now, who are going to still have to be involved in this project and any others that come down the road, to answer all of their questions about 40Bs, how they work, how they don't work, what are the rules, the regulations, the latest updates and procedures. And that would be something that's offered to all of the departments and all of the committees in town who are potentially involved in 40B, including the ZBA, obviously sponsored by by the ZBA. The second seminar would be specifically geared towards all of the different 40B residents in town. And what Veronica would do is provide Jonathan Gray, not me, with the email addresses of all of the residents in town, so that on behalf of the ZBA, Jonathan could send out a Zoom meeting note. And what that would be is to discuss the things, the do's and don'ts that people who are residents need to know about their 40B property, how they can sell it, how they can't sell it, what happens if someone passes away, or if it's more than one person owning the home, they both pass away. How is it carried down? What if you want to build extra rooms? What if you want to do all these various things? Because she also gets calls on these things. So this would be an invite to all of the 40B residents in town. The other residents don't have to know who one another is. They're not going to have email addresses or anything like that, but they would be invited to join this Zoom meeting. And in fact, they'd be invited, similar to the other meeting, to submit their questions ahead of time. So if the board has no objection, I wanted to go ahead and try to set these up with Veronica and also with Jonathan, but these wouldn't even be happening until after the first of the year at the earliest. So by the time we got everything put together, probably mid-January for one, maybe mid-February for the other one, something like that. But I was hoping the board would at least say that this is something worth doing and worth pursuing. I don't believe it would require a vote to do these two different types of Zoom meetings.
So my only negative for this is that I wish we were able to do this before this 40B came before us, just because I feel like a lot of the members of the public, when they, hear 40B, I think a lot of I know we send out a mailing, and, we say multiple times how this information can be accessed anywhere. The general, and I'm sure it's not just our state, I don't mean this that way at all, or our town, but the general knowledge of what a 40B is, I wish the public and, had more knowledge of that coming to a meeting. I'm kind of half kidding when I say, that's a downside. I wish we had that, but it is good to have something like this for this going forward for residents, and, should any other 40Bs come our way, or something along those lines. So, I have no objection to this at all. So Jonathan, what exactly would your role be in this?
Jonathan Gale, are you asking Jonathan Gale?
Gale, I'm sorry. Yes,
my role would be to help facilitate it. So I would work with Veronica to put the agendas together for both of the meetings, for the one for the 40B residents in town, and the one for committees in town, to put the agenda together. I'd work with her, and I'd be working with CHAPA both to put them together, and then both of us would be working with Jonathan to get the information out to the different town committees for one, and commissions, if whatever the term someone wants to use, and the second one to get it out to the 40B residents in town. So my role would be to help facilitate, and then but not to actually lead, just to facilitate these meetings. And I will, to answer the question that you were just asking, Zach, technically still am and was on a 40B committee. In fact, we had to do the whole Serpent project for recertification for 40Bs about 2 years ago. We did want, and I was really trying to push hard to put exactly what I'm talking about together before we even started the process with Strawberry Fields and when we were early on in Strawberry Fields. But I did not get the support that I needed from the 40B chairperson. So it did not occur at that point. So
Right.
there was
So
an effort to do it, but it couldn't happen.
No, I know. I was being facetious, but no,
I know
it's
you
true,
are,
though.
but I want to be clear.
No, yeah, absolutely. So the only I guess comment that I have is that yes, of course, it would not need a vote by the board or anything. But the only thing is that I know we kind of touched on this back when the office manager before Jonathan was here, in terms of what and John, I know Jonathan. Gail, I know this is not a reflection on you directly. You were at the time speaking on behalf of the chair, but should Jonathan Gray's role be impacted, whether it's additional work or time out of the ZBA? That's we're just crossing. I won't say crossing the lines. I don't mean it that way, but now it's getting to you want not you, but with one wanting Jonathan Gray to be involved in mailing. That is taking away time out of his 40B his zoning job. So that is my only thing I want to, I guess, put on the table in terms of this. Like, if that's something, especially with him being a union position, if this is going to be more hours, this could be, or sacrificing the job of the zoning board. That's my only hesitation when you mentioned that Jonathan Gray would be involved. That's all.
And my response, and I don't know anybody else's thoughts, but my response is that I think in terms of Jonathan's responsibilities and duties to this, yes, obviously it's going to involve him to set things up, to do the emailing, to do the, I don't know how many hours it will take total. It's going to be spread out, except for the, perhaps the week that we actually do it, when it would be more intense. But beyond that, to me, this is part of the responsibility overall, since we don't have another way to do it at this point, of the ZBA to bring the information to the town and to provide the best education we can to the town. This is a public service that we can provide. We are a public committee. So I would think that somehow we would be able to work to regulate Jonathan's hours, just like we do when we have other different meetings in the evening, special meetings or meetings like this one.
Right. I don't mean to be, I don't want to come across any certain way, but I'm going to argue kind of something we talked about last time is that, yes, it is a job of the town to do this, but in my opinion, wouldn't it be the 40B committee who would be the one responsible for this? And Jonathan Gray does not work for the 40B committee. So why would we have him do work for another board that doesn't, I think when we had this discussion last time, it was, okay, well, the chairperson, the vice chair, and the clerk, their job is to act as the office manager if they don't have one. That's my own. I don't mean to be pushy, but
And Zach, I don't take offense to it. And I think number one, the 40B committee hasn't met in over a year and a half. It's that simple.
Okay.
I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
Without getting into the weeds on anything. And as you know, with
Yep.
the 40B committee, through no fault of its own at this point, has no budget. So even if they had something, there's nothing there. I think, if part of the responsibility of the ZBA, with everything that's gone on, and because this is still going to go to other committees in town for different types of approval based on all of the work that you have all put into this over the past 2 years, it's going to now go to other town committees. And I think it's important for them to be able to have a source that we can provide, at least that allows them to ask a lot of the questions related to decisions they're going to have to make, for the legal questions and the ethical questions and the way things can or can't be done, that, we may not be the place. They're not going to come back to us for that, but they're going to have at least a place to go and ask these questions and hear the responses between CHAPA and the monitoring agents, because the monitoring agent speaks on behalf of DCHD. And then secondly, the other opportunity is for current residents who are 40B owners already, who are purchasing after 40B has done their work, after the developers are building, but they've never, ever had an opportunity before to be heard in town, because again, you're buying after the fact. But I think, again, we're the only avenue that potentially they have. to at least give them information going forward, because, you know, I'll leave it at that. I'd like to
So,
hear from the other members what they think. If
well,
I'm
I was
wrong,
going to say,
share with me.
rather than speak on his behalf, I'm just kind of sticking up for him because I know how hard he works. Jonathan Gray, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I don't.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be that much extra work, to be honest with you. If Mr. Gale's going to be sort of guiding the discussion, and you know, I don't really see this being a huge burden on me. You know, from sending out a few emails. If I don't have to go out and like market this event, and I just have to send some emails, that's not.
I'll be honest. I didn't foresee it at all being much of a burden. If we didn't have a very similar discussion last time with the other office manager, and it was more of a discussion than what this is, going back and forth about, you know, adding to their responsibility, I would not have even said this. It's just something that I, you know, really set to me last time this came up. So I was trying to prevent, hey, Jonathan, here's another five things we got to do. I know I'm exaggerating when I say 5 things, but, you know, I know the kind of discussion we had last time. So I just wanted to make sure that didn't go unnoticed. But obviously, if you feel as though it's not anything that would impact your job here or put more of a burden on you, then you know, Jonathan, your sanity is all that I was caring about for that. Other than that, it does not bother me at all. So
I don't know if that was a question, but yeah, no, I don't think it's an issue.
Okay. Board members, I guess, again, it's not anything that we need to vote, but how do you guys feel?
Is there a fee for this, for her to come out to do this?
No, she's doing it. First of all, the way things are going, it would be via Zoom. And no, there is no fee involved in any of it. She is the monitoring agent.
Okay.
She is not the lottery agent. That's different. The lottery agent is the folks who actually market the homes
Right.
and do that part of it. She's the monitoring agent for the Commonwealth.
Okay.
And she would be doing it in conjunction with Chapman.
Okay. I mean, again, it's not anything that we need to vote or anything, but I just obviously wanted to make sure that we all had our comments heard in case someone had a strong feeling either way. But no, it sounds great. You know, I'm big on, you know, getting information out there because I think, you know, in the world today, a lot of people, you know, want to be informed and need to be informed, but sometimes have no way of getting it. So I do think it's a great idea, and I hope we get some kind of turnout for it.
Greg or Ryan, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of it. Sounds great.
The only thing I want to say is that I do remember, again, as long as I think we had to go in front of the selectmen because the other office personnel was requiring more hours. I do remember that, Zach, as you were bringing up nonchalantly.
Yeah.
So as long as this doesn't interfere with hours with the zoning office personnel, I don't see it to be an issue. You know what I mean? Because, you know, last time we had the selectmen up and down us over it because of
exactly. And
Well,
I have to do my job and make sure it's being taken care of. That's all.
I will do it.
I think it's a very good thing if we can do it because it will help knowledge a lot of us. And to think we know everything about ZBA is, about the 40B is very, very hard. And I think it'll be helpful.
Is it?
I will do everything I can in all seriousness to, when I'm sharing information with Jonathan, and I haven't asked of Jonathan, I think you all know, and I think he knows, I will do everything I can to keep it to an absolute minimum. In all seriousness,
Absolutely.
I will be very conscious of the time that he would potentially have to put into this. And he can always feel free to say, Jonathan, slow it down or whatever.
Who's reaching out to the other boards about possibly trying to be involved with this? Is anyone?
We haven't even gotten to that yet. I think what I would do is just simply, again, this is part of the invite process, would be to reach out. I might even either add, whether it comes through Jonathan or it may come through Brett, for example. Maybe the Board of Selectmen could invite the other town committees to be involved and to join in. It's an invite. It's not that there's no obligation and there's no requirement. And so it's really going to be a question of who's going to send out the email.
So the only thing I would add here is that I know I have heard other town departments that boards, committees, just interested people within the town that are interested in having a broader discussion about housing developments, both planning board housing developments and zoning board housing developments, and planning for the future. And so there might be other stakeholders here, particularly that would want to help plan this meeting or discuss what are the priorities to talk about with the town and board committee meeting on 40B. So perhaps the webinar for homeowners might actually be the first one we offer, just because that seems more simple.
That's more, you're right.
The one for the town, I think, needs to be a little bit more curated and work with Tom Ferry and Carrie and make sure that and Jim and make sure we have we cover all the bases on that.
And I have no problem putting that together. I have different ways and auspices. I can put that together also. So I'm happy to do that.
Alrighty.
Curate that.
Right, sounds good. Jonathan, great. We got anything else that came up that we need to address, or you want to bring up anything at all?
No, I think we're ready to adjourn.
Oh my God, a 40B meeting done at 9 o'clock. Holy moly. All right, so guys, and any members of the public that are out there, please have a good Thanksgiving. This is the best holiday in my opinion. So just enjoy, everybody. Be safe, whatever you guys do, definitely be safe. Jonathan, just while you're here quickly, do you mind just giving everyone an update on the status of the town hall being closed to the public? Is that in fact definitely happening on Monday?
So town hall is currently closed to the public as of yesterday. If you are a member of the zoning board, I don't think you're necessarily a member of the public. You're an employee of the town to some extent. So Ryan and Peter, I appreciate you coming and signing the document earlier. But I think you're allowed in. So even though, you might consider yourself a member of the public, you are, sort of staff to some extent. So don't worry about that from your perspective. For anyone who might be watching, just be aware that, the doors are locked on town hall for at least the time period starting, yesterday. And, we're just sort of monitoring, I guess, the COVID scenario, seeing what's going to happen there. Just because, I think we've just had a lot of cases pop up in town recently. So I think they're just trying to be
it should happen. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but, we're still accessible via phone, email, and all that. So that's all on that. I think I do need a motion to adjourn, though, to close off the meeting.
Yeah. So if I would like, do I hear a motion to adjourn tonight?
This is Jonathan Gale. I will make a motion that we adjourn, and I hope everyone has an amazing, wonderful holiday.
Michelle,
Excellent. Is there a second?
can I just do we have a meeting tomorrow? A regular zone board meeting?
No.
No. Nope, we do not.
Off my phone, so that was like confusing me. Okay.
That's right.
Alrighty.
All right. So that was Ryan's second. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye. Jonathan Gale.
All right, guys. Sounds good. Have a good
All right,
vacation.
guys.
Have a good